Hey y'all, this is my review for the Real Housewives of New Jersey reunion parts 2 and 3. So as y'all know, I was in LA for damn near almost a week. So I'm going to be combining a few of the episodes coming this week on my channel. So I'm going to be doing Jersey parts 2 and 3. Real World, I'm going to try to have that later after this video, hopefully. I'm going to combine episodes, I believe, 4 and 5. And then I'm going to do the same thing with Beverly Hills. I'm going to do episodes 1 and 2. Because doing it separate, I would lose my mind. So yeah, let's get into this reunion because I actually enjoy both parts. So part 2 opens and Josephine is pissed right now. And Andy's trying to get Teresa to get him back out there, even though Teresa is the reason for the walk-off. What's really crazy is Andy cares more about Joe walking off than Melissa. I think if Melissa walked off, they would just continue with the reunion because Joe's still there. So Teresa goes to follow Joe backstage, and then now they're having a full-on argument back and forth in front of Margaret's husband, Joe. As Teresa's trying to make a point about Louis defending himself to Joe, she points at Margaret's husband and says, "This effer and his wife is the reason." Margaret's husband is just like, okay. At that point, I would have just walked off. Teresa continues to be unhinged and separated from reality. Joe keeps harping on the insult that Jennifer called him, and Teresa's like, well, Joe, you are involved in the Housewives drama a lot. And I will say, to Joe's defense, oh my God. I hate defending Joe or Teresa, honestly, but in Joe's defense, like, Teresa brings him in that. Because she's like, Joe, tell Margaret to shut the F up. Or she'll be like, Joe, control your wife. Like, she keeps bringing him in the drama, so of course he's going to be involved. So in actuality, it's really Teresa's fault that he's in the women's business so much. Like, for instance, on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, Peter would involve himself in the women's business and always interject his opinion. But Cynthia wouldn't, like, ask for his opinion or bring him into the argument, ever. It would be all on Peter. So to Joe's credit, Teresa, as well as his wife, they do bring him in the drama a lot. So he's just used to it at this point. We're back on set, and then Jackie takes this time to tell Jennifer, while Teresa isn't there, that, you know, they do have a friendship. It's just whenever Teresa's there, she acts different. And as they're talking, Andy looks bored. He's looking at his phone. He's like, my 2 stars aren't here. I don't give an F what y'all talking about. He didn't say that, but that is the look on his face. So then Andy gets up and goes to check on Teresa and Joe backstage. Meanwhile, Teresa is still yelling at Joe for not defending her or sticking up for her. And does she not realize that she just told him to stay out of the women's business, but then is now telling him to stand up for her and involve himself? Like, she is a walking contradiction, and she drives me crazy. Like, not having to see Teresa on the TV every week is actually a blessing, so I'm kind of glad this reunion is over. Andy is now trying to mediate the two, and then back on stage we see Melissa, and she feels like she's not getting that much attention, so she goes backstage too to see what's going on. Now in this moment, Andy makes a great point. He tells Teresa, even if Margaret did not say anything about the rumors or what his exes have been saying about him, like, Andy would ask it anyway. Like, you're on the show, they're gonna talk about the mess. And bobblehead Teresa, boulderhead Teresa, lunkhead Teresa does not get it still. So now Teresa's telling Joe whatever she can to get him back on stage and not quit. Like, she gives him this fake ass apology, and Andy, he just looks like he's ready to get this reunion over with. I really feel like they're at like the 8th hour or something because his patience is really thin, you can tell. So now order is finally maintained, the ladies are back on stage, and they continue with the reunion. So next up, Dolores is in the hot seat. So first we find out that her mom is doing okay, which is great. And then the most interesting thing is Frank is now living with her ex, David. What? Like, how is that okay with Dolores? I want to know. But, you know, I'm guessing they both developed a friendship. But the reason why he doesn't live with Dolores anymore is because Dolores has a new man, and of course he wouldn't be cool with that, like her living with her ex. But I want to know, what is it with Frank just living with people? Even Andy asked, does Frank have an income? I don't think Dolores caught that shade or unpacked that. She just kept going on explaining. It definitely seems like Frank is couch surfing right now. He actually reminds me a little bit of my dad. Like when my dad would get with these women, he would live with them. Not to put my dad on blast, but I'm just saying that he's the type of man that needs a woman to take care of him. So he has always lived with a girlfriend or a wife. But yeah, that's too much of Chris's business. You're going to have to hear that on the Patreon. So now they're talking a little bit about Dolores' new man, Paulie, and then we get some more tea on David. Turns out that he's dating one of Louis' exes that he was talking to before Teresa. And they were actually talking for 2 months. Teresa tries to clarify and was like, oh, well, they were just dating. They weren't like serious. It looked like there was some overlap because he met Teresa and then never called that girl back again. Yeah, Louis knew what time it was. Like he said, oh, this is a sure thing. I'm gonna get with that. Teresa finds herself a little tongue-tied explaining the situation because we all know this comes off a little messy, but they move on. While they're really talking about that corpse David a lot in Dolores' segment. But anyway, Teresa then tries to make this moment about her again and then inserts Margaret, and then now Teresa and Margaret are going at it again. Next up is a kids reel, and fast forward. The only kids I was interested in this segment was Margaret's, because Margaret is just very hush-hush with her kids. So I want to know, does anyone in the chat know if Margaret has like a biological child, like that's hers? All I see is like she has kids that were hers through marriage. But anyway, she says that she has 6 kids between her and her current husband, Joe. But she said one of the relationships out of the 6 are strained. And then we hear Jennifer interject saying, oh, well, you should bring them to therapy because kids are resilient. 10 points for Jennifer for bringing that up, because production reminds us Margaret told that to her when it came about her worrying about her kids. Andy is also holding Marge's feet to the fire. Margaret basically just needs to cop to that comment because, I mean, it was extremely insensitive, and, you know, Jennifer had a point. She got you, girl. Andy then talks to Teresa about her relationship with Gia, and then we see Gia was real skeptical about Louis as well. And then Teresa has the nerve to bring Margaret's name up again. Well, it's only because Margaret brought it up. She can't be that stupid. Like, she is really a dog with a bone. What is wrong with her? Like, at some point, the other ladies and Andy need to interject, saying like, Teresa, this was not Margaret's fault for bringing this up. She did not bring it to light. The rumors already started before the season began. It's not Margaret's fault that you're being conned by a liar and a used car salesman. And speaking of the Louis rumors, Teresa stands up and tells Andy that, oh, well, the reason why his exes are all coming at him is because of me. She starts spinning around in her outfit. It's given delusion. High delusion. So next up, we get to Jackie's reel, which we all know was about her eating disorder. It's so funny how Andy tells Jackie she was so moving on the show, yet we already know that they dropped her as a main cast member. But Jackie says she's doing better, she's actually gained weight, and she's not eating the same thing over and over. Like, we would always see her eat salads on the show, whichever restaurant they went to. They could go to a seafood restaurant, an Italian restaurant, a Chinese restaurant. She'll find a way to get a greenhouse salad. I will say, the more she's talking about it on here, it still shows that she has a long way to go. Andy then asked a messy fan question about Teresa fat shaming Margaret and how did that make Jackie feel. And Jackie said no one should ever fat shame. And then Jennifer hurries up and interjects and says, oh wait, hold on. Like, what about that tweet that you said that, you know, I need to have liposuction? Or when Margaret cracked a joke about Jennifer fat shaming her. So Jennifer got a point. But still, Teresa, like, she did say the ass jiggling comment, which can be like, okay, whatever. But she continued it and said, oh yeah, well, Margaret never misses a meal. I don't think the other lady's main attacks on Jennifer is about her weight, because there's so many other things you can read her about. Lord, and again, Teresa and Margaret are going back and forth. They've regressed to the 5th grade now, because like, you did it. No, you did it. No, you did it. Andy is getting so annoyed right now. Andy is getting so annoyed right now as he's trying to move on. Like, you're in between two of the loudest women on the show. I can only imagine how that feels. So next question goes to Jennifer, and it's about her surgery and whether she thinks she's getting too much. Now, she explains it perfectly to me. Like, she had 5 kids. Like, get all the surgery you want. Like, all the breastfeeding and everything, yeah. Like, she was snatched after her 2nd season, and as far as her nose, I didn't even realize that she got a nose job. If she didn't say it, I wouldn't even realize it. A lot of people were saying, oh my God, what did she do to her nose? It's not that noticeable to me. And doesn't Dolores have the most surgery out of all the women? Like, Dolores got everything done, and she looks good too. I really wish Andy would just chill out on the surgery questions, because I just think it's real outdated. So the next reel is dedicated to Margaret versus Jennifer. First, they're discussing how Jennifer handled the bomb that Margaret dropped on her about knowing about the affair. And surprisingly, Margaret and Jennifer aren't going at it like I thought they would. Like, they've gone at it more in different segments, in part 1, I think. Now, Melissa is then asked a question about calling Jennifer inauthentic. And Melissa says that Jennifer was the one that started the feud in the first place between them. Now, Jennifer is like, Andy, can I explain myself? She goes behind the couch and pulls out these blown up text messages. I think Wendy did the same thing on Potomac, but she does it way better than Wendy did. She was quick and efficient, and I gotta say, she made her point. Like, this started from Melissa's post, and Jennifer was just responding. And that's when it got to Joe being called crooked. She made her point to me. Like, Jennifer was ready for the reunion. Jennifer's always ready for the reunion. I also want to say that I find blown up text messages about this large hilarious. Like, at one point, I do want to do that to a friend that I'm arguing with about, well, I said this on February 9th, 2021. So Jennifer and Melissa are going back and forth, but Andy moves on. Like, he's ready to go. Andy's now doing a lightning round of asking questions to the ladies of different jabs they've said about one another. And mostly it's dedicated to Jennifer and Marge attacking each other about their hypocrisies on infidelity. Now, if y'all forgot, Marge is the one that cheated with somebody, and Jennifer is the one who got cheated on. In regards to Bill's infidelity at his workplace, Margaret is now trying to make a case for the woman. She's like, why is the woman the one that has to be fired? Because Jennifer got that woman fired when she heard that she was fucking her husband. And I mean, Margaret brings up a good point. Like, how does Bill get to keep his job? And I'm pretty sure he was the superior in the situation, and the woman is the one that loses her job, much like Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, I would say. But Jennifer does have a point too. Like, she's the wife. Of course she's going to be mad. Of course she's going to wish everything, hell, on the woman that fucked her husband. So I get both sides. So now this literally turns into a yelling match between the two with a split screen. Andy is trying to maintain order, but then the other ladies jump in on the match and they're all yelling. Andy has had enough. He gets up and says, "Shut up!" Again, I still don't understand how he gets away with telling these women to shut up. Because I would be like, who the fuck you talking to? You shut up. Yeah, I don't get it. But that's the boss, and I'm guessing they don't want to get fired. But yeah, after he does that, that is where Reunion Part 2 ends. So this was a great Part 2, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I think this season actually warranted 3 parts. Like, we're finding out some new information. The reads are good. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Also, has anyone seen Tracy at all? Like, wasn't she supposed to come to the reunion? She had like a whole look. Like, she was there, but we don't see her, so maybe she'll be in Part 3. But then we open with Part 3. You know, Andy's telling them shut up, and he says he has a dinner reservation to make, and they all laugh it off. I totally believe it. He definitely wants to make this dinner reservation because he has been moving along with the questions. You can tell he's ready for this to be over. They're probably at the 10th hour at this point. So they finally move on, and we're back to the topic of Jennifer's husband's affair. We found out that the affair lasted 2 months, and then when she got over it, she didn't talk about it for 10 years, according to her. She didn't think about it at all. I don't believe her, but that's what she says. Margaret says she was shocked that she broke down like that. Melissa says she thinks Jim was actually relieved that the secret came out. And Jennifer kind of agrees with her. She said that the main reason she wants the secret out is because of her children. Andy also gets Margaret to say that she regrets dropping the infidelity bomb on Jennifer. Knowing how she would have reacted, she says she would have never said anything. We then talk about Margaret's mom, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to Andy bringing the husbands out. Andy first starts out with just asking the husbands random questions about what was already talked about, getting their point of view on it. I still can't believe that Frank is living with Dolores' ex. Like, he is living out his bisexual life in private and thriving. Side note, we still didn't get a Tracy appearance, and we're about maybe a quarter in part 3. Like, I honestly think that if she would have bought Tiki Barber, then Andy would have had her on, because you know how Andy loved the black men. Andy will keep a housewife on because they have a sexy husband. It's happened before. I can't think of it now, but I know y'all can say something in the comments. I guarantee you, Tiki must have not have been there, because if Tiki was there, Tracy would have been on camera. But anywho, Andy's still going around the room asking the husbands questions. The only one I'm interested in is Frank, because we're getting the tea now. It turns out that he actually does not care for Dolores' man. And the way Dolores whipped her head around when Frank called him Buzz Lightyear, she did not like that. You can see that she was pissed. Even Andy said, "You made Dolores pissed just now," and that's the most pissed she's been the whole reunion. Frank probably don't know it, but he just secured Dolores' spot for season 13. Like, that's a story I want to see. So Dolores finally has a man that has a problem with her weird relationship with Frank. Yeah, I think she's guaranteed now for next season. So now Teresa's fiance, Louis, is in the hot seat. I honestly don't believe a word that's coming out of his mouth. He's trying to explain why he lied about the video, because he clearly was proposing to somebody. And he's saying like, well, initially it was a proposal, but then we got back home and she wanted $1 million prenup. I'm like, okay, sir, okay, moving on. So then Andy says a laundry list of all the rumors that have been said about Louis to him, and he asks, is any of it true? Now, Louis isn't denying, but he's definitely spinning the situation. For the emotional abuse, he said, oh, we were both in a toxic relationship. For the domestic violence, he says, oh, well, there were 2 disputes on record, but that had to do with my wife and kids' custody. And then Andy asks, well, did you hit her? And then I found it interesting. He says no, but Teresa answered no as well. I don't know. Like, you don't get a police report filed, 2 of them, 2 disputes, and you say you didn't hit your wife? Okay. I don't know. He's a politician right now. That's how he's answering the questions. Louis is then asked about Margaret's actions and what he's seen so far on the show. And surprisingly, he says he doesn't blame her. He agrees with her. Him saying this makes Teresa look stupid, but side note, it's pretty easy. But why was she so mad at Margaret the whole season if her man don't care? After that, Louis gets a break and Andy asks the other husbands some questions. Evan and Bill are asked some questions, but it's basically rehashing things that they already discussed. So now they're talking about the tussle between Melissa and Jennifer and Bill's non-reaction. I swear, anytime Joe Gorga speaks, sexism or chauvinism comes out of his mouth, and you can see by everyone's reaction that they know it's wrong, but people just was like, oh, that's just Joe, or they laugh it off, or Andy, he just makes a face. Like, he needs to be called out on that, because he be saying some wild shit. He says something stupid about the women being emotional, but the men, you know, they're more calm. Calm as you were when you walked off? Okay. There was a bit of a record scratch moment when Andy told Jennifer that her husband said that she was out of line. She whipped around and was like, you thought I was out of line for kicking him out of our house? And he's like, but no, I said 2 wrongs don't make a right. Bill is the type that doesn't want to be involved in the women's drama whatsoever. Much like Margaret's husband. I think he minds his own business too. Oh, Lord, and we are back at the bitch boy comment. I don't want to hear the word bitch boy anymore. Joe says, he has nothing against Bill. They actually went on a double date to dinner, which I'm really shocked by because the way Melissa and Jennifer are going at it. Jennifer then takes this time to call Evan out for coming at her husband when it was just the men. And I agree, Evan was going real hard, and then he called his wife an accomplice. And she makes a good point. She was like, that is my husband. That is like the father of my 5 kids. Like, each one of y'all on this couch, like, y'all talk to y'all husbands and have their back. They don't call you an accomplice. They call you, wife and husband. So yeah, I'm glad that she's sticking up for herself in this moment because Evan was out of pocket. She also addresses Frank too for doing the initial digging on Jackie's husband. Like, Jennifer is on a roll. Like, she owns the reunions. I don't think she'll ever be sitting on the far end of the couch, much like Melissa. Frank looks a little tongue-tied, but Dolores says, can you tell this fucking C word that I had nothing to do with that? Jennifer's like, don't call me that. Dolores is sick of Jennifer's shit, clearly, but Frank does say Dolores had nothing to do with it. Frank only cops to it because Bill said that he met up with Frank and Frank told him that he might know the girl, and then Bill told Jennifer, and that's when, Jennifer was telling Teresa, and I guess they tried to do the digging. Jennifer just wants to be vindicated because I do understand, like, they were all coming at her, everybody. She definitely finds her voice on the reunion. I just find it so fascinating. Either way, Evan still apologizes to Bill because he was definitely in the wrong. It looks like another argument's about to start between the ladies, but Andy then puts a pin on it because, he got his dinner reservation. So he's about to dismiss the men, but Joe wants to say something. Oh, I'm sorry. Josephine wants to say something. He says whatever he had to say. It was something stupid and mindless. And then Louis drops a bomb and says that he actually lost his job. We got fired from his own company because of the negative press. And I'm like, well, you decided to come on this show and all what you did was on you. That's nobody's fault. But then you have dumbass Teresa coming in and was like, it's this bitch Margaret's fault. And then Margaret was like, are you fucking kidding me? And now they're going at it. And as Teresa and Margaret are going back and forth, Andy asks Louis, like, do you blame Margaret for this? He says no, but Teresa's still talking, and then Margaret's still yelling, and then he's trying to maintain order, and then he was like, shut up! Shut up! Not a good look for Mr. Cohen. He looked weird as fuck, and it was like awkward silence. And then he goes to ask Louis the question again, is he mad at Margaret? And Louis says no. So again, I don't understand where Teresa is coming from, where her mind is. Like, she came in with the plan. Blame Margaret no matter what. Margaret then tells Teresa to shut the fuck up, and I agree, because Teresa's a fucking moron. But anyway, Andy finally dismisses the men, and as they're walking out, Teresa tells Louis, don't shake his hand. He's talking about Margaret's husband. Like, he's trying to be a gentleman, he's trying to be an adult, but Teresa is a petulant child that suffers from idiocy. Like, everyone knows she's wrong, but nobody wants to call her out. They're just like, oh, that's just Teresa. She is absolutely exhausting. So now the men have exited the stage. It's just the women. And I think the only thing to address now is Margaret versus Teresa, especially where Teresa shoved whatever was on the table in Margaret's direction. Andy is again trying to break it down to Teresa in an elementary level. Like, why she should not be mad at Margaret, and the rumors were already out. Like, he really broke it down for her to the point where all he was missing was a pop-up book. But the dumb bitch just doesn't get it. Now she's using Dolores as an example, and I'm like, you can't use Dolores as an example because she follows you blindly. Like, she is loyal to you to a fault. So you can't use her as an example of a friend asking another friend questions about their seedy partner. So now Teresa and Margaret are full on yelling at each other, and Andy is allowing it. Teresa again tells Margaret that she was digging shit up, and Margaret's like, I didn't dig anything up! Like, the reactions from everyone at Margaret's outbursts, especially Dolores. How do they move forward? Like, they can't. That's why I'm wondering, like, how are they going to get another season out of this? Like, them hanging out with each other without, like, a mediator. Andy then just decides to move on because this situation is unsolvable. Woo! And now we are at the 3-minute mark, people, and we are at the end of this reunion. And you know Andy always does some cheesy shit, so now he wants to go around the room and ask them their most positive takeaway from the season. I love how Jackie said the show saved her life and now she's demoted. After that, it's a lot of blah blah blahs. We see Dolores laughing at Jennifer for asking her, "Am I still to see you next Tuesday?" They then do a champagne toast to the season, and that is where the episode, the reunion, and season 12 ends. Whew, thank God, more so because I don't have to deal with Teresa's ass every week. I'm tired of her dumb ass. Her lying, denial, and constant contradictions are gonna catch up with her, and that phony relationship is gonna blow up in her face. He is going to use her, and after they get married, I can see them lasting 2 years tops. Like, come back to this video. Like, I'm calling it now. But aside from annoying ass Teresa, I do think this franchise pulled in Atlanta where the reunion was better than the entire season. So they did a good job on that. I was entertained on all 3 parts. It was actually good. I also can't believe they cut Tracy completely out of the reunion. Like, we already got the confirmation that she ain't coming back, so I'm guessing they were like, well, she don't really have to be on here. Like, damn, like, that is so embarrassing. Like, I checked her Instagram, and of course, she isn't even mentioning it, and her comments are, like, limited too. So she knows the deal. She was used by Bravo, and I hope the check was worth it. And could we really see a friend of Melissa thriving on here when Melissa herself is boring as hell? I also want to say this franchise was surprisingly a rating success. Like, they only had like a 12 or 13 episode season, and they averaged like 1 million viewers per episode. So Teresa's stan, most of the cast is stan. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But yeah, Jackie's demoted. I do think they need another type A. They need 3 type A's on this show. Margaret can't be the only one. But yeah, y'all let me know what y'all thought of this season and the reunion. Again, I'm sorry I had to mash these together, but a ninja be busy. So next up, I'm doing Real World Homecoming, followed by Beverly Hills. I will see y'all then. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all for the next episode. Bye.